My name is Mark Davis. I'm the president this year of SPAN, and I'm thrilled to have Aya Hamilton back. Welcome, Maya. For those of you that have not been to SPAN, our mission is to help advisors get firsthand feelings from philanthropists and leaders in philanthropy about how to be better stewards and help their clients with philanthropic intent. And this was founded we founded this in 2008 with Paul Shoemaker, Randy Ottinger, and Alan Pratt, and brought on some really important board members initially, including Patty Dill, who was at the Seattle Foundation. And since then, we've had 28 conversations, and today I've learned that there are 24 newcomers to SPAN. So I'm thrilled that actually 24%, because we have 100 people today, are new. So if you would please stand if you have not been to SPAN, and let us welcome you. So for those that are new, we do things a little different. We flip it a little bit. So instead of having lunch served now, please enjoy your salads, we're actually going to have the conversation, and then following the conversation, we'll serve lunch. And at each table, we're very careful who we select as table captains. So if you'll please raise your hand if you're a table captain. So we want to be sure there's a table captain at every table. Otherwise, things go adrift. Good. Looks like we have a table captain at each table. And we have a conversation about what we've learned during the conversation and other things that may come up. And then at the end, we, of course, let members announce things that might be coming up, like a luncheon that you're hosting, or potentially a fundraising event that is in line with Seattle being the philanthropic capital of the world, which we are. Today we're very fortunate to have Paul Shoemaker lead the conversation with Tony, but I know you're dying for him to get up here, but first I do have to recognize the SPAN sponsors. Without our SPAN sponsorship, we would not be able to have SPAN. Our SPAN sponsors are Alan Biller, Andal Care, BNY Mellon, Clark Newber, Cornerstone Advisors, Filament Advisors, Helsel Fetterman, Laird Norton, Morgan Stanley, National Christian Foundation, Pacific Continental Bank, PG Calc, Pratt Legacy Advisors, Alan Pratt, Seattle Children's, the Seattle Foundation, Social Venture Partners, Wellspring Group, and Whittier Trust. Please give our sponsors a big hand. So now, please join me in welcoming Paul Shoemaker. Paul and Tony, if you'll come up to the front. Founding Director of Social Venture Partners, which has broadened to now 23 cities around the United States in 5 countries, who will introduce and lead the discussion today with the President and CEO of the Seattle Foundation, Mr. Tony Mestres. And at the end, there's going to be a little time for Q&A. So if you do have a question, please talk loud because we are filming today. Please welcome Tony and Paul to SPAN.
So when do you want us to be done by?
Like 25 of.
Got it, thanks.
Or 20 of.
Okay, all right, thank you. 39 cities in 8 countries now, by the way. So, hi everybody.
It was a big year for Paul.
There you go. It's great to be here today. I'm an Iowa State grad, and 20 minutes ago my NCAA bracket just got blown up, so I'm not in the greatest mood right now, but it's not about my NCAA.
Glad he's in a good mood today for this.
So we're not here to talk about the NCAAs though, so good to see you.
It's nice to see you.
So Tony and I have been good friends for a while. He's been a part of SVP, and seeing people like him come into the community and take off like he has and take on leadership roles like he is just really something that for SVP we're really, really proud of. So let's sort of start at the obvious place, which is, you know, not the 20-minute version, but give us a little quick summary sense of how your career path led you to where you are today.
Before I do that, though, I do want to say that to be interviewed by a guy like this that is an icon of not only philanthropy, but our community and a sort of a jewel in our crown. He's gonna give me grief later saying that I was just trying to soften him up for the interview. But let's give a round of applause for Paul Shoemaker and all he did. I grew up in a small island in the Atlantic called Manhattan, and a few months after I graduated from college, I traveled around the country and camped in a bunch of national parks, and I found myself in my parents' apartment. My father introduced me to the Help Wanted section of the New York Times and encouraged me that he would support a few months of rent, but it was now time to start my career. And that was the beginning of what was a 22-year career that traversed actually telecommunications and then the convergence of communications and computing, the last 15 years of which were at Microsoft. And it was an amazing ride. It was actually less by planning and more by circumstance and hopefully some value that I added along the way, where I got to be exposed to more and more opportunities for impact in being a leader, organizations, working sort of cross-discipline with regard to corporate development, business development, global sales leadership, global marketing leadership. And it was a very fulfilling career, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, I'm sure. But around 12 years ago, I realized that I wanted to begin defining myself in a way that was more connected to how I saw myself in the world. And there was this, then little-known organization springing up. I guess it was 13, 14 years ago when I first got involved, but you'd been doing it for a few years before that, called SVP. And I got involved with SVP, and SVP helped me on this journey that involved a number of organizations in trying to give back to the community and understand whether or not I had value and I had contributions that would be helpful to the world around me, and that kind of ignited this process. And then over the last year or two, I really took a sort of terrifying venture in looking at, did I want to make a career shift in a very holistic way? And I actually decided that I did, and luckily enough, they found work for me.
You jumped off the cliff. I might need some advice pretty soon. So you, about a year ago, somebody handed you this job description for something called the Seattle Foundation. I assume after a few weeks of reading that and looking at that and doing your research, you probably had some perception of what it is. And now today you have, I assume, another perception of it, what it is. So take me sort of where you were, what you thought then, and what you think now, and what you want it to be.
Because of the boards I had sat on in the nonprofit space, I obviously knew of the Seattle Foundation, and I knew of many of the things that it is and should be recognized for as a good steward of the community, as a collection of very dedicated philanthropists who want to do what is right. And I also will say that that was pretty much the limit of my knowledge of it. And so there is a sort of a theme in that which says that the Seattle Foundation is known in certain cohorts of our community, but not as broadly known as I believe it should be across the community. And I also did not necessarily recognize the things that the foundation had begun to do in terms of really thinking about thought leadership and civic leadership in terms of having a positive impact on the community. So we've been under-recognized, I think, in terms of the great work that the foundation team, who I will say, just in terms of the feedback we get from donors, from the community, from partners in this room, et cetera, they are truly the heart of what's great about the Seattle Foundation, and I hold that precious. But that role of civic leader is something that we're going to continue to build on and make sure that we are living the mission of igniting powerful, rewarding philanthropy to make this broader, greater Seattle area a stronger, more vibrant community for all of us.
Still glad you took the job?
Sorry?
Still glad you took the job?
It is equal parts inspiring and sobering, and I am beyond glad that I took the job.
Awesome, good. So in your sort of brief bio at the start, you mentioned your dad's Help Wanted sign. You mentioned SVP. Are there sort of, role models, mentors that helped you sort of get to this place where you are right now?
There are a few, and authentically, again, you're one of them. And and I'm not going to talk more about you in front of you. I'll just save that for private conversations. But the one in particular was my brother. My older brother, Ricardo Mestres, was a Hollywood studio executive. He was the president of Hollywood Pictures, and he was an independent producer. And at the age of 46, he made a decision to go back to medical school, and he's now an ER doctor at LA County Hospital. Actually, I think he's on duty right now. And he did that because he had his own particular journey, which I was lucky enough to be in a family that had a bit of a pattern of this, of having that examination around how he wanted to define himself and his role in his life. And he helped me muster the courage by his example to really think about that kind of change. And with that kind of change comes a lot of the imposter's dilemma. Can I actually do something different? Am I actually able to transition my skills and my experiences in a way that will help the people around us on this rock for a short period of time? So he was one. Mimi Siegel, who some of you may know, is the executive director of the Kindering Center and truly an icon of nonprofit leadership, and has had immeasurable impact on the lives of children and infants with special needs and the families of those children, was another. And Mimi, I first was a volunteer at Kindering, then I became a board member, then I became Mimi's board president, and she brought me up. She lovingly helped me understand what was transferable in terms of my private sector experience to how I could help organizations in the community, and I hold her dear in that respect. And then another who was actually on this stage about a month ago was Robbie Bach, who was the president of the Media and Entertainment division at Microsoft, and was sort of my daddy professionally. He's the guy who chastised me, taught me lessons, lovingly helped me understand how I could be better in a very self-critical world. And he was a terrific leader in helping me know that you can be very disciplined, high intellect, high performance, and also thoughtful, empathetic, compassionate, and courageous. And that leadership isn't beating people over the head. Leadership is picking people up and making them bigger.
Well, we're a product of so many people along the journey, right? And I assume in your family, if you start to feel like you're a big shot, you don't have any, you get brought back down to size real quick.
I'm
right?
the underachiever.
Okay, all right. Family, tell us about your family.
It's interesting. I was having some conversations with a number of Latino leaders in the community. My grandfather on my father's side and my father's side of the family is of Mexican descent. And my grandfather was born in Tampico, Mexico. And then my mother's mother was born in County Mayo, Ireland. And so there is a bar in Chicago called Carlos Murphy's, which is actually an Irish-Mexican bar. It's the only Irish-Mexican bar I know of in the country. Hopefully there are more. But the family sort of from both parts of the globe came to New York City, where I was born and raised. And it was a fascinating place to grow up as I reflect on this city, which I consider my home now. It was at a time in the 70s and 80s when it was not uncommon that you could be riding a bus and look down a side street in Manhattan and see a burning car. And it was one of the most dangerous places in the world. I took a course in college by a retired British colonel who'd spent time in some of the roughest places in the world, and he said that New York City was actually the place he was most scared to be in. And the city's made huge leaps since then. But it's a reminder to us, whether it's a place like my hometown or other places we see around the country, that greater metropolitan areas can tip. And they can tip really, really quickly. And it's sometimes hard to predict how that happens. And then digging out of a hole, which includes a tremendous amount of human suffering, can be something that takes many decades to do. So I think the reminder for us, from my family upbringing, is we don't want to get anywhere near that negative tipping point. And to the extent that we see indications in our community right now that we need to together get on top of, that is something that we at the foundation are authentic about.
There's positive tipping points too, right?
There are. And so the interesting thing about this community is, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country, as we know. It is one of the most educated and literate. It is innovative in a very unique way. It's multi-core. It has cloud computing and life sciences and aerospace and maritime and retail. I was at a lunch yesterday that had as its theme all of the incredible development, including 20 feet from us this way, that's going on in the community. I think Amazon is saying that they are going to build 10 million new square feet of office space in Seattle that isn't even on the plans right now. And that's an indication of this incredible prosperity and the wealth creation around that, and what many of our partners in this room spend a lot of their day in working with their clients and these incredible, successful people. However, against that backdrop, we also have some of the worst statistics in the country of the top 50 cities relative to the conditions of parts of our community and the people in those parts of the community, from the statistics of education achievement and just the general theme of equality of opportunity, that our kids can all get on the ladder of the American dream, hopefully in some degree of an equal starting point, and actually have an opportunity to reach the American dream. A professor from Harvard Business School named Jan Rivkin was here. Jan Levy and I had dinner with him just a couple of nights ago. And he and his colleagues at Harvard are looking at the statistics around the country relative to what defines the American dream. And their assessment is actually only about 1/3 of the kids in America have any chance of achieving the American dream because of that challenge around the equality of opportunity. So for us, I would just say, when I say we, the Seattle Foundation, of course I mean my team and I, but I also importantly mean our donors. And then fundamentally, I mean our partners. And if there was any one thing that I specialized in my private sector career, it was partnerships. And so I would just say to all of you in this room who are professional advisors and partners, and also there are nonprofit leaders in this room, when I say we, I mean us. And we want to be helpful, supportive, good partners to you so that we can help bring more equality of opportunity to our community.
Well said. So sort of two basic questions I got to ask you. So one, you're a little past the honeymoon now. What would you sort of say to folks this is what I want the value proposition of the Seattle Foundation to be? What would you say to that?
I'm looking at my board chair at the back of the room. I guess I am past the honeymoon period. So the value proposition of the Seattle Foundation has a number of elements that have a core. The core of it is that we are communicating the community's needs, we are convening parties effectively across the community, and we are working with our partners to catalyze action that has a positive impact on the community. Now, there's some tricks in terms of how you actually go and do those things. One of them is you have to actually have really thoughtful, substantiated, collaborative views of the theories of change that will make a difference to the greater Seattle area. And so we are doing some things to up our game in that respect, and spending a lot of time talking to some of these incredible people, both at the faculty and student level at UW, at Seattle U, at Seattle colleges, and bringing them together so that they can help us have that thought leadership on what truly are the needs of the Seattle community. It is a global leader. I was thinking about what Mark said at the introduction. It is a global leader in philanthropy in many ways, and we are a community that has enough brains and enough power, and dare I say sometimes enough ego, that we can get fragmented. And we actually, by the fragmentation of our view of what is necessary for the community, we can dilute our ability to have positive impact together. And I was lucky enough to have a team that sent me on what is now counting over 400 onboarding meetings with community leaders in my first few months. And I got feedback from all of them across sectors, across government sector, private sector, social sector. And the feedback was interesting and in many ways very consistent, that says, this is an opportunity where an honest broker, a humble broker, a thoughtful convener can step up and help with that. And the Community Foundation and Seattle Foundation, with nearly 70 years legacy in good stewardship and pure mission, I think is the appropriate leader to do that. And I've been delighted by the degree to which I didn't even have to ask that. It was encouraged upon me in these discussions.
Foundation's a unique platform, for sure. So the other sort of obvious question is, you're sitting here with a room full of financial advisors. You said they're your partners. Say a little bit about what do you think? How does the Seattle Foundation sort of think about their relationship with financial and wealth advisors, and where do you sort of see that going?
The first thing I do want to say is, in the room are so many people who have helped us over the years. We have people in the room who have been incredible partners to us, who've given us great feedback, who have helped connect the interest of your clients with the Seattle Foundation and how we can help them. We have people who have been on advisory boards for us, so I do want to just truly say thank you to all of you who've participated in that way. Thinking back to the theme of good partnerships, the thing the team is designing right now and will roll out is what we call a partner program, or a premier partner program, and that really applies to all of the partners in this room, that says we need to package, communicate, deliver, be responsive to you as partners at just a new level of, I would say, excellence in execution, and we want to do that. The other thing that we want your feedback on, and there's probably going to be, if Mark lets us, we're going to probably send you all a mail to make sure that we can get your feedback in this way. We want feedback on what you think is the right engagement model, both at a strategy and a model level. There's different types of partners. Obviously, there are estate planners and wealth managers, and so there are different answers to this question. But from a strategy perspective, how do we actually show up effectively in a way that serves your clients' needs, and then therefore obviously serves your needs in terms of your goals? And I would say that what we've done well has been a result of good, organic, natural, dedicated relationships, and that's fantastic. I'd like to add some programmatic service level agreements, and just making sure we're firing on all cylinders from the foundation side to support you. You are the nexus of where philanthropists thinking about what they need to do to help this community can really work with the foundation. And our unique value proposition, back to what I was saying, is the community insight and connection. We want to take that from the difference between, say, talking to a travel agent about going to Rome and actually talking to a guide on the ground in Rome about Rome. We want to make sure that you really have that level of insight that can bring all the satisfaction to your clients and their philanthropic needs.
Stuff. So in a minute, I'm going to see if you guys got any questions. Just one more before I do that. So you, as you well know, you're following lots of sort of iconic folks in this role. Ann Farrell, Phyllis Campbell. I actually sat here a few years ago with Norm Rice when he was stepping up to the bar. So how should we think about you as, other than your head and your hair and lack thereof, including mine, how should we think of you as different from or the same as those leaders? What's your style versus those guys?
I do fundamentally believe that any great organization has a different leader for different eras. And Ann, all of them sit on the non-declinable seats on my kitchen cabinet of advisors, and I call on them in different ways, and they've been incredibly helpful and supportive to me, each of them. Ann built the foundation of the foundation. I mean, Ann was really the person who birthed the thing in a real way in this community. And she has taught me many great lessons about the essence of what makes Seattle Foundation such a good steward, and the professionalism and the focus on the donor's needs, even if that means that the focus on the donor's needs suggests that there's another solution that's not the Seattle Foundation for them, and that's just an incredibly important ethic. And Phyllis brought a level of business discipline and leadership and scaling, as well as weathering the recession, and just incredible thoughtful leadership in that respect to the foundation. And then Norm obviously took this sort of community-focused effort that Phyllis actually initiated to new levels of acuity around racial and economic justice and equity, and now so you've got kind of, she would be mad at me, but I'm going to say it. Ann's sort of like the queen, and Phyllis was like the banker, and Norman's the mayor. And it's like a Jean le Carré novel title, and I guess I'm not sure what I am in that lineage. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants in that respect. What I think I can bring, hopefully, is an acceleration and a level of precision to the foundation in this time. This is against the backdrop of great growth and prosperity, but huge potential for continued suffering of the people in our community around us, and doing that via partnerships, and also doing that via evolving our value proposition to more of a portfolio of segment-specific solutions for philanthropists in different positions, as well as making sure that our brand and our identity is known, all for the interest of support and our impact in the community. So I'm proud to be doing that, and we'll see what, a few years when you're interviewing my successor, what they say my title was in that novel.
I invite people to join me in the thinking process of what to name this guy. I'm not going to do it right now because I'd get myself in too much trouble, but I'll think about that one. So how about any questions out there? Anybody that has a Tony? Anything on anybody's mind you want to share or ask? Back there, yeah.
The culture you inherited, the impact that you had on that culture, what would the change be and how would it manifest itself in your culture?
Everybody hear that?
I can repeat it. Yeah. The question was how I might look back aspirationally 5 years from now on the culture. And do you mean the culture of the foundation, or do you mean broader Seattle culture? Sure. My hope, when I did one-on-one interviews, and some of them are in this room, so I'm staring at the carpet as I say this, but when I did one-on-one interviews with my team, the common words that came up in the first month were love, privilege, family. I mean, the pride of the team in working at the foundation, and I now share that wholly, is really unique and special. What is interesting for me in my transition from the private sector to philanthropy is the degree to which some of the things that I bring around the science, business systems, methodology, performance management, strategy thinking, etc., can add to incredibly smart, incredibly dedicated people who are define themselves partly by being at the foundation. So additive to that, I kind of thought about when you're thinking about making a move from private sector to the social sector, one way I think about it is the science of it is actually quite transferable, methodologies you need to use. The heart of it needs to be completely reoriented. And if you don't actually reorient your heart, the application of the science of it can land really badly. You can break lots of glass and also do a lot of destruction. So for me, the reorientation of the heart has been my learning. For the culture of the foundation, I hope that I bring them some skills, some leadership, and some strategic support to just accelerate the love, privilege, and feeling of family they have for being there.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody.
Hi, Tony.
Yeah.
So you've been there about a year. You've had hundreds of interviews around the community. What's been the biggest surprise?
There's good surprise and bad surprise, and they relate to each other. So it is one answer, but I have been pleasantly surprised by just how aligned people's heart and aspirations are for this community. There not only are people leaning in, I can tell by the things they say and how they say it, how authentic they are in terms of all the work we all do around the community, not just being a check in the box of, well, I do some giving or my corporation has a philanthropic program, but it's very heartfelt and that's extremely exciting to me. I didn't realize there would be that temperature level around that ethic. The surprise on the, I'll call it challenge side, is how disparate we are in that, in terms of the fragmentation of actually being effective together, as well as the fact that we have a community that has got the risk of an illusion of everything's going well, when, if you just in the downtown area, you walk around and, you may see homeless citizens there, but you can also, if you're not careful, get yourself into a bubble that says things are going terrifically and we're in a great place at a great time. But the Brookings Institute guys were in my office a few months ago, and they helped me see the stats that sit alongside Executive Constantine's stats that say, do not be, clear the clouds and make sure we can see things acutely. So that I am surprised at the fact that that's not as commonly understood as I think we all need to help people understand. The Chronicle of Philanthropy says that in the greater Seattle area, the average citizen making over $200,000 a year is giving 3.59% of their income charitably. And interestingly, nationally, those making under $100,000 a year, their percentage of giving is significantly higher than those making over $200,000 a year. For me, and we have to be careful as a team of partners here, that we express these things as an opportunity and a positive challenge to individuals, philanthropists, et cetera. But that's an opportunity for us to state the challenge against the pride of Seattle more clearly, so we can get that percentage of giving by people making over $200,000 a year or $2 million a year or $20 million a year, et cetera, really to match the challenge we've got as a community.
One more question. Yes, sir.
There's
Increasingly, we're seeing a collaboration between for-profit and non-profit organizations in addressing societal problems. An example would be fostering social enterprises. What role do you see the Seattle Foundation having in fostering this kind of collaboration that I think we're seeing? Yes, sir.
Frank Minton, who's been one of the most important partners to us over the years, was asking about there's been an increase in public-private types of partnerships and types of vehicles to make change happen. How do I see that going forward? The first thing I would say is that in major metropolitan areas, when you look back and I was at a conference with Ann Watson, our chair, a few weeks ago in San Diego with the 25 other big community foundation CEOs and board chairs. And there is this backdrop that says, with the dysfunction and gridlock going on in DC, and with some of that disease catching state capitals, we in major metropolitan areas are in many ways on our own. We will continue to do the things we need to do at a federal and a state level to try to get the support that we as a society demand from those systems, but we're on our own. So when we're on our own, what do we need to do differently? How do we need to change the playbook to deal with the challenge I described earlier? And one of the ways we need to change the playbook is to think about cross-sector partnerships at a whole new level. Not cross-sector partnerships that for a specific challenge might be a good two-sector venture, a public-private venture, which is true, but really to think about the convening of the government sector, the social sector, and the private sector to do what Frank's question suggests. And what we at the foundation are doing is talking to the mayor, talking to the county executive on the government sector side, and then importantly, to your question, Frank, Maud and the CEOs who are participating in the chamber on the private sector side, and I am lucky enough to sit on her executive board now, are thinking about the specific answer to that. Challenge Seattle is a great effort from the private sector side that has a set of initiatives from foreign direct investment to STEM, et cetera, that are rich with opportunities for private-public initiatives, as long as they are governed well. Those that have not been successful have had, generally speaking, a governance and goal challenge around them. So if we are upfront with ourselves about what is private sector trying to achieve and how does that serve the impact that the public sector or the social sector is trying to go after, and not pretend that we are in agreement on that, but actually be very precise on it, they can be very successful.
Is there anything I didn't ask you or that you wanted to say that I didn't get to? Davis, okay. Hey, you run the place. Okay, you can ask a question.
Mark's question first, and then I got one for you. Yeah.
So seeing the growth of SVP,
seeing the growth of the Seattle Foundation, learning about SVP2 in Menlo Park and Silicon Valley Foundation, it appears that the two organizations should come together. So it's a question for the two of you.
Yeah, I'm actually lucky enough to be a board member of SVP, so I'll put my board hat on for a second. They are unique organizations with unique efforts. The space we are in is ripe with. Actually, all mergers are, there's a long list of failures and a short list of successes, and that's usually because there isn't enough of an appreciation of the really specific value that one organization provides versus another. I will say it's a great opportunity, Mark, for me to remind everyone that Social Venture Partners was birthed and incubated at the Seattle Foundation, and you know, we are really, really proud partners. They also have a mission that is focused on a piece of the equation for a philanthropist that is different than what we do holistically. But Paul and I have initiated a number of things, including with impact investing, that says, what does a good partnership mean in terms of the opportunities available for an SVP partner that is also a Seattle Foundation donor, et cetera. We got a lot of big stuff on our plate, both of us, and I think being a good partners is exactly what we should be doing.
Zero reason to merge and every reason to be joined at the hip.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, anything you wanted to say that I didn't get to?
Well, I did want to just follow on Mark's mention. There is a dynamic in this community that I want to, as partners, offer to you that is different than what is happening in Silicon Valley. So at the Silicon Valley, there is an ethic amongst high net worth individuals that when you want to give back, you are supporting the community foundation in doing that at very, very high levels. So it wasn't just Mark Zuckerberg who put $1 billion into the Silicon Valley Foundation. It was a number of high net worth individuals. They did not have in their experience set a trend toward private foundation that has happened here, and private foundations are a perfect solution for many philanthropists in lots of situations, so I'm not putting that model down. But Silicon Valley Foundation is pushing $7 billion now in assets under management and growing at a rate because of that appreciation that let's not go build separate pyramids for the sake of building separate pyramids. Let's get behind an organization that we believe has earned the community's trust in executing on the community's interests. We have an opportunity at the Seattle Foundation to step up and earn that more here. And I also would enlist you, give us the feedback that you think we need to have in order to activate that ethic amongst high net worth philanthropists in this community in the same way.
So Mark took the first part of my last thought as I was sitting here listening to you, which is Seattle Foundation did birth SVP back in 1998, and to come, I don't know, full circle, I don't know how many times, and to be sitting here today with an SVP partner that's taken on this role is just pretty damn cool. And the last thing I would tell you, what Tony said is that he's going to bring this sort of like head strategic thing to the Seattle Foundation to go along with the heart. I think that's true. Do not underestimate, this dude has a heart as big as all outdoors, as big as New York City and bigger. So I just want to say to you, the legacy of the Seattle Foundation is in great hands, and you handed it to somebody not just with a big head, but with a big heart. So thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
You that do know Paul, I think his first conversation we had with Debbie and Paul Brainerd was really what set the tone for SPAN. In the meantime, of the 27 programs we've had, I think he's been responsible for 14 of them. And of all those 14 he's set up, I think you've managed the conversation each time. So again, Paul, great job. Thanks.